Do you think COVID helped you guys just because everybody went remote?
Without a question. Yeah, and I struggle with talking about this part of the story because COVID was so terrible for so many. But while most people were stuck at home trying to figure out what to do with their time, I was having 40 demos a day, 7 days a week, because the
Wow.
solution that we had built was so perfect for that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and what was interesting about it was the year prior, we had our pitch decks. And we did have in our pitch decks that we thought remote work was the future. We had these slides that said remote work is growing, whatever it was, remote work is growing,
Yeah.
3 times as much as other forms of work, whatever those slides were, totally underestimating what ended up happening because we had no idea of knowing that. And in January of 2020, we did our first remote work pilot where we worked with a bunch of remote teams because they existed even then. It was hard to find, but they existed. And so we were really ready for that moment without planning it, obviously.
That's amazing. I mean, sometimes being in the right place at the right time, and being prepared for that moment, that's kind of sometimes what luck is. Uh, can you, when you talked about those first real customers that are actually now paying and subscribing, what did that look like for you guys? Like, how long did it take to start getting revenue generating?
We okay, let's see. So we started the company in earnest November, December 2018. We spent all of 2019 doing I'm going to call them beta tests, but they were more like alpha tests. So at that time, and that was totally free of charge. At that time, we were really curious which category of community, what kinds of communities would benefit from this, and who should we focus on and build for. And so we built this massive spreadsheet that had every kind of dimension of community, kind of category, like topic. And we wanted to look at network density, so how close people were to each other, how well they knew each other. So, for example, Facebook groups, very low network density, but your family, a higher network density. Affinity, so how important the community was to the members of the community, size, geographic distribution, et cetera. And so that first year, my goal was to find one community for each square. So on this side, it might be category. We wanted to find a health community that is high network density, low affinity, et cetera. And so it was hard to just find people and get them to commit the time. I wasn't going to ask them to pay anything. And they would host these icebreaker events. I would be in the room. I would observe. We would do a survey. I'd interview them. And it was all with the goal of informing product development, but also market strategy. So when COVID happened, suddenly every market, every category of community was interested and relevant to us. And so we didn't want to have any friction to that. We didn't want to charge people because it was the ultimate experiment in who wants this, who's coming back, who has the highest degrees of product market fit, who has the highest willingness to pay, who expects to keep using this, et cetera, et cetera. And so for the first 9 months of the pandemic, the product was completely free. We did tell people, hey, we intend to charge you at some point, but we wanted to see what happened if we opened things up. And we also, frankly, hadn't figured out pricing. We weren't planning to launch at that point yet publicly. And so we hadn't figured out what's the right pricing unit, et cetera. Yeah. And so during that time, we were able to study our data and interview our customers and our users and send out surveys. And we uncovered by the end of 2020 that the category that had the highest degrees of product market fit, highest willingness to pay, were companies that were using us to connect and engage their employees. And you have to remember 2020, we think of as being about the pandemic. And obviously that was the big thing and the move to remote work. But there were other dynamics at play that year and in the year that followed. One was the importance of DEI in the workplace. So June 2020, George Floyd happened. Suddenly employees were really pressuring employers to do something about DEI and make a real statement and really invest in a meaningful way. And our product enabled people to have meaningful conversations, which lended itself really nicely to DEI programs. That also was a time where companies were hiring like crazy and retaining employees was a top business priority. It was the Great Resignation. And that's another thing that meant retaining employees is a key business metric, a key business objective. And losing employees is a big problem. And so the combination of remote work and figuring out how to connect people and actually do your work, needing to invest in DEI programs, and you need to retain your employees, all of those things led to an environment where anything that made employees feel better, more connected, more engaged, more loyal to the company, happier at work, were top business priorities. And so that also served us really well beyond just the pandemic piece.
Yeah.
So end of 2020 is when we first introduced pricing.